What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Thorn's Jungle, the only podcast that takes place in a jungle. That's a lie. I'm not in a jungle, but you can imagine it, right? Anyway, hope everyone had an awesome weekend. It is currently Monday, as Australians say it. Monday. Yeah, I went down there Monday. Yeah, I went there again on Tuesday. But that's Monday. Anyway. It's warming up here, man. We're getting into summer, and it's bloody fantastic. I went for an awesome swim at the beach just down the road from me. The water was a bit too shit for snorkeling. The visibility wasn't great, but the water itself was bloody lovely. I'll tell you what. And then I went to the sort of around the corner. There's like rocks that come out into the water. And you have to kind of get into the water to walk around the corner of the rocks. And then there's a whole other beach there, and there's just never anyone on it. And there wasn't a single person on that entire beach. And I decided to do some sprints up and down the beach. And I tell you what, there is nothing more freeing than just being alone out in nature and just running. Like, I'm not a runner, but I can sprint like the bloody wind. And it's just like, there's no obstacles in the way. You're just like, just flying along this beach. It was bloody awesome. So it was a good weekend. Anyway, today's episode is something that, I can't believe I haven't actually done an episode on this. I actually thought I had, and I had to scroll through the Thorn's Jungle archives and see if I actually had. And I was surprised. I was like, how have I not done an episode on this? It is something that I've known about since I was a kid. It is probably one of the most well-known and oldest animal attack mysteries / cryptids. Because being an animal attack mystery, that kind of leans towards the fact that we didn't know what animal actually did it. And it's been, a couple hundred years, and we still don't know what animal this was. And that is none other than the Beast of Gevaudan. The Beast of Gevaudan. In case you don't know, there is a movie about this called The Brotherhood of the Wolf. It's a French movie, but it's a really cool movie. It's really awesome. It was they kind of overindulged in a few things, but it was pretty cool nonetheless. So if you haven't already seen The Brotherhood of the Wolf, check it out. So basically, in a region of France called the Gevaudan, a massive spate of attacks started happening between 1764 and 1767. Basically, a lot of people were getting attacked by an individual animal. And the attacks sort of spanned an area of 80 to 90 kilometers, which sounds like a massive area, and it is, but for certain types of animals, especially solitary predators, they have huge ranges. So if you look at tigers and things like that, they have ranges that span, tens of kilometers. So it's not completely sort of unusual for a large predator to have a range of that size. So how it all began was in the early summer of 1764, a young girl or young woman was looking over her cattle in a field that was sort of bordering on a forest. And it was near a town. Now, I will tell you, I'm going to be pronouncing French names here. So please excuse me when I absolutely butcher them, which I will. So this forest was near a town called Langoni. That's what I'm going to say. It's east of Gevaudan. Anyway, so she was tending her cattle herd, and a beast that she described as wolf-like, yet not a wolf. So, yeah, you try figure that one out. Like a wolf, but not a wolf. All right, that narrows it down. Anyway, it came at her, like stalking her, pounced, ran at her. But the bulls in the herd recognized that there was a predator around and charged at the beast, which kept it away from her. So she was never attacked. It came back another time, and same deal. The bulls sort of defended themselves, and as a trickle-down effect, accidentally defended her as well. So that was kind of handy. But then, shortly after, the beast claimed its first victim, first official victim, and we'll get into that in a second. But the first recorded death was a 14-year-old girl called Jean Ballet, and she was killed near a village called Le Hubax, which is near Langoni, where the first woman was stalked by the beast. But yeah, she was actually killed by the beast, this Jean Ballet. But what's interesting about this death is on her death certificate, her burial certificate, it actually says it was killed by, and I quote, the ferocious beast, right? Not a ferocious beast or, an unknown animal. It was written down as the ferocious beast, which kind of suggests that she wasn't the first one killed, because the ferocious beast kind of indicates that it is a known beast that was around and has killed people. But Jean Ballet was the first certified death from the ferocious beast. Now, not too long after, only about a month later, the beast claimed its second victim, which was another 14-year-old girl, and she lived in, actually not too far from when Jean Ballet was killed. And look, to be honest, these deaths are important because they are sort of the first ones that set the tone for all the other attacks. But basically, attacks were just happening left, right, and center. Mainly children and women, but men were being attacked as well, and killed, and also partially eaten by the beast. Now, a lot of these people were like children, because Gevaudan, or the Gevaudan region, it's basically a region of villages that, peasants live there. So it's not a nice, ritzy, fancy town. They are peasants that consist mainly of cattle herders, sheep herders, things like that. And obviously, if you're a child in that era and that region, you're working at the age of 4 months. By birth, they've got a shovel in your hand, right? So you're working from a very young age. Maybe that's a bit too young, but anyway, a lot of these people that were watching over the cattle or the sheep were kids. They would put them to work, so they should. Get them working. They're not bloody out terrorizing streets. So in this, a lot of the attacks were on kids, whether or not it was targeting kids because they're easy targets. But, they might not have been, because the beast was actually attacking full-grown men as well. And back in the day, full-grown men were probably the size of our kids today. But anyway, I digress. Some of the people were partially eaten, as I just said, but some of them were really gruesome. The heads were missing and things like that. It would behead people. The beast seemed to be targeting the neck area, which is fairly common with large predators. But again, they didn't know what animal was causing this. Now, I do need to mention wolves in Gevaudan are very common. Like the Eurasian wolf is like almost a plague in that area, and they do take livestock and things like that. There was no shortage of wolves in the Gevaudan, okay? But wolves are actually quite timid animals. They don't often attack people. Under very rare circumstances, they will. But it's these people live alongside wolves. They know what wolves look like. They know that this isn't usual behavior for a wolf. And also, if a wolf wants to take down an animal larger than itself, it doesn't often do it alone. Okay, if it was taking down like a cow or sheep or other livestock, it would be hunting in packs. And humans, for the most part, are larger than wolves. Yes, a Eurasian wolf, which is a subspecies of the grey wolf, they do get big, and they could easily take down a person if it really wanted to. I mean, not necessarily easily, depending on the person. I reckon I could put up a decent fight against the Eurasian wolf. But yeah, it is unusual that it is a solitary wolf targeting people, especially when there are sheep and other livestock around. Kind of this supernatural description of this beast started arising. Things like, it could leap like supernatural lengths and heights. Some people even described it walking on its hind legs, almost like a werewolf. They reckon it could repel bullets, because a lot of people tried to shoot at it and it did basically nothing. They also thought it could come back from the dead, because putting a few bullets into this beast and it not dying, they're like, maybe it went into the woods and died and then came back to life. Anyway, after so many attacks and deaths, the media kind of started to take notice, and this kind of spread not just throughout France, but throughout a lot of Europe into Britain and things like that. And the king at the time, King Louis, was kind of getting a little, how would you say, embarrassed that this beast has killed so many people and attacked so many people, and we still can't kill this thing. It's like, come on, we're French, we should be able to kill this. Anyway, so he's taken notice. The King of France has taken notice of these attacks happening in this tiny little peasant town in the Gevaudan region. So that's saying something, right? That, this is getting a bit out of control. And in the 3 months that these attacks have been happening, it's killed a lot of people. A lot of people. Like, I don't know how many people, but that's when he started taking notice. At least 50 or 60 people. I mean, that's a lot of people being killed by this animal. And that's why they believed that it wasn't killing people for food. It was just killing them out of fun or sport, which is very unusual. So King Louis got one of his captains, Captain Dumal, and he gathered some troops and they set off to Gevaudan. Okay, they're like, we're going to kill this thing. We're going to be, the pride of France. We're the army, for God's sake. We're soldiers. We can kill an animal that is a wolf, but not a wolf, apparently. So they went to the Gevaudan region and didn't kill it. And he blames the incompetence of the people that were with him. Dumas was like, man, the guys you set me up with, these troops are rubbish. we couldn't kill it, obviously just blaming other people, as you do when you fail at something. You're like, I didn't fail, these guys made me fail. So King Louis went, all right, well, I'm going to get some professional hunters to go out there and try kill the Beast of Gevaudan. So he hired, oh man, this name, Jean-Charles Marc Antoine fuck that. I'm just going to call him Deneval. I'm just going to call him Deneval. That's the last name of his 65 names that he's got. So anyway, Deneval and his son, Jean-Francois, were sent out to try and kill this beast. And these are professional hunters, all right? So they're like, okay, we'll give it a shot. Dumal kind of linked up with Deneval. Even though all three of these people had completely different strategies, Deneval and his son believed that it could only be shot using stealthy techniques, so, like hiding and camping out. Whereas Dumal was more like, let's just send an army in to just basically, walk through this forest and just try find it and shoot it, I guess. They brought bloodhounds with them that had been trained to seek out wolf packs. This went on for 4 months. These people were trying to kill this beast. 4 months. And eventually, they killed 2 Eurasian wolves, which they believed one of them was the beast that was responsible for all these deaths. Now, after these wolves were killed, they're like, yep, we got it. No, they didn't, because the attacks continued. Deneval's was eventually replaced by Francois Antoine. That's not to be confused with his son, who also had the name Antoine in it. Francois Antoine was pretty close to the king. It was his lieutenant of the hunt. So, when they go out fox hunting and shit like that, trying to be big men by hunting animals. Like hunting game and stuff like that. That's not to be confused with, hunting stuff for food or whatever. But, they'll go out and kill big game just for the fun of it. This guy was the lieutenant of the hunt. So he got sent out. Francois Antoine got sent out. And he organized this huge hunt. Like, huge. And apparently, like, the story of, like, they saw it, right? He shot at it 2 or 3 times and it got away. They saw it again on a different time. Shot it a couple times. It apparently didn't faze this beast and it ran away. Eventually, he shot and killed a large Eurasian wolf. And he's like, yep, this is the wolf. It's a big wolf, bigger than, what we're used to seeing. And you know what? He didn't even say that. He said we shot a wolf that was quite large. And he declared that he's never seen a wolf bigger than this. Hence, that has to be the wolf that did it. And he even showed some attack survivors and they apparently recognized it. So he took the wolf back to France and got it stuffed and then presented it to King Louis. Now, Francois Antoine did something a little bit dodgy, right? He stretched the skin out over a mount that was far larger than the wolf when it was alive to make it appear a lot bigger. Okay? So he kind of, botched it, did the dodgy. And he's like, yep, this is a wolf. Look at the size of it. This has to be it. And you know what? The attacks did stop for a little while until they didn't again. The attack started again. Okay, so After Francois Antoine had already claimed the bounty and reward, he's like, oh, crap. Okay, the attacks have started again. So obviously they're like, oh, there must be multiple animals that are responsible for it. I killed, the one that was mainly responsible for it. But anyway, he did the dodgy. He was there for months, didn't kill the animals, so shot a large wolf and played it off as the beast. Okay. Now, kids, there was 2 boys, age 6 and 12, that were attacked, and that suggests the beast was still alive. One of the older boys actually fought the beast off and managed to save his mates, even though they were like messed up. But in saving his mates, he ended up getting carried off and partially eaten. Brave boy, but yeah, ultimately he met his demise. By March 1766, the attacks multiplied. So they started becoming more and more frequent. They tried poisoning this animal, but they ended up, their dogs ended up getting poisoned and stuff like that. Small hunts were organized, but nothing happened. They never actually, caught anything that would suggest it was the beast. I mean, they killed a lot of wolves while looking for the beast. A lot of wolves, but the attacks just kept on happening. It was the attacks are kind of like peaking, then coming to a lull and peaking again. So that it wasn't like, for this 3 years it was just like boom, bang, bang, somebody getting killed every day. There would be months where there wasn't any attacks, and there'd be months where there was like a lot of attacks. So it was kind of weird. Eventually, so after all this failed, after 2 professional hunters, after, soldiers were out there trying to kill this thing, eventually a man named Jean Chastal, who was a local hunter, managed to shoot and kill the Beast of Gevaudan. Okay, now I'm going to be mentioning this soon. After this animal was killed, it was a large wolf, right? Or wolf dog, so a wolf dog hybrid. After it was killed, there was apparently no more attacks. Okay, and I say apparently no more attacks. So this local hunter, Jean Chastal, who shot the alleged beast, there's plaques of him all over Gevaudan now. He's the one that slayed the beast. This poor peasant hunter managed to bring down the Beast of Gevaudan when the king and all his men couldn't put the Beast of Gevaudan dead again. Fucking hell. So, yeah, he's the hero of the town. Really, he's the hero of the town. But I say allegedly because there is an autopsy of the beast that was shot by Chastal, and there are a lot of discrepancies in it. A lot of discrepancies. To the point where it is very... I don't think he shot the beast, to be honest. Although the attacks did slow down after he shot it, there were still attacks. Okay, not as frequent and not as many people, but there were still deaths and attacks. Now, I'm going to read you the autopsy report of the wolf that Chastal shot and killed. They actually, did an autopsy on the remains of the animal. Now, I must add, the animal wasn't in good shape when they started this autopsy. It's called the Marin report, this autopsy. It is in French, but I did manage to find a translated version of it. And it's not convincing, to be honest. Like, there are a lot of discrepancies. I mean, for one, the animal was in really bad shape. The people performing the autopsy uh, have described it as an enormous wolf-like animal with huge jaws. Yet, when they're taking measurements of the animal's body parts, like its head, jaws, teeth, things like that, there is nothing that really is any different to any other Eurasian wolf. It's actually not any bigger than just a normal sized wolf, which is very unusual. These people know what wolves look like. They see them a lot. Yet to describe it as huge, bigger than any wolf, yet when they take the measurements of it, it's the same size as just a normal. It fits well inside the parameters of just a normal grey or Eurasian wolf. So the skull length of the beast, and I, doing the sarcastic quotes, measured 29.7 centimeters, the length of the head, which fits perfectly inside the parameters of just a normal wolf, which averaged about 26 centimeters. Now, this one still did have flesh on it, which is going to make it a bit bigger, but without flesh, it would on the skull, it would be this an average wolf. And this goes with many of the other measurements taken: the thickness of the head, the width from ear to ear, the forehead width below the ears, all fall inside the parameters of a normal wolf. Now, what's interesting is, to kind of justify and confirm that this was the Beast of Gevaudan, they showed the corpse to witnesses. Now, this is where it gets a little bit strange. The witnesses confirmed that it was the beast responsible of the attacks, but the date that they confirmed it was actually before Chastal shot the beast. Now, how does that happen? How do you confirm, yep, that's the body of the beast, before he even shot it and there was even a body? And everything that the autopsy people described, there's wording in there, there's lots and lots of discrepancies. So after reading the autopsy report and all the descriptions, the measurements and everything, it almost debunks that was the Beast of Gevaudan. Okay, so Chastal is a hero in that town. He's got statues, he's got plaques, but he didn't actually kill the Beast of Gevaudan. He didn't. This autopsy confirms it. They made this autopsy to convince people that it was the beast he killed, but in fact, it didn't. It did the opposite. It was just a wolf. That's all it was. It was no bigger than any other wolf in the area. They thought they found the head of a human femur bone inside the wolf's stomach, but there is nothing in the report that shows how they came to the conclusion that it was a human femur and not something like a sheep's or a young cattle. They just didn't do a good job. So what was the beast? And what became of it? Well, the descriptions that witnesses and the locals that saw the beast, the description they report isn't anything like a wolf. They describe it as, it's like a wolf but bigger, has a different tail, it walks differently, it hunts differently. Back in, 1760s, things like that, they didn't have a lot of encyclopedias on animals or Google where they could just Google animals. They didn't know what a lot of animals looked like. They knew what wolves looked like, but they didn't really have anything else to compare it to. And the beast was described as being the size of a young bull or a donkey, which kind of throws a wolf straight out of the mix. There's no wolves that come anywhere close to that size. They also described it as being a tawny color to a sort of reddish brown color with a darker strip sort of going down its back. Now, Eurasian wolves do come in all sorts of different colors. Yes, they can be tawny. Yes, they can be a reddy color. Yes, they can have black on them. But I'll just tell you straight out, this thing was not a wolf. Wolves don't hunt like that. They don't they don't pull people's heads off. Right? It just the whole behavior of this animal does not fit a wolf. The descriptions that the witnesses describe does not fit a wolf's descriptions. And there are a lot of theories as to what the animal is. And like I will say, yeah, once Chastal shot the wolf, the attacks slowed down. They didn't stop, they slowed down. Now, if you look at wild animals, they don't live that long in the wild. Okay? Once this thing has reached maturity and it had a spate of hunts over 3 or 4 years, it's already almost at like half its life expectancy. And if this is an exotic animal that isn't supposed to be there, it's going to live even less. It could have just died naturally because it's in a place where it's not meant to be, with prey that it doesn't really know how to hunt, or there's a whole range of possibilities. It could have been something like the Savo man-eaters, those two lions in Africa that preyed on people, and then later it was found that they had like mouth disease and things like that, which is why they were taking easy prey like humans, which is a possibility with the Beast of Gevaudan because it had its pickings of cattle and sheep, but it went for humans, which are far easier to bring down and catch. So that's another possibility. Now, a lot of the animals that are coming up as potential candidates for the identity of the Beast of Gevaudan, one of them, and probably the most popular one, is a striped hyena, which I think is absolutely preposterous. To be a striped hyena. For one, striped hyenas are smaller than wolves. Eurasian and grey wolves get bigger than striped hyenas, for one. So that kind of just throws it out of the mix right there and then. Secondly, striped hyenas are so distinctive looking, unbelievably distinctive looking. They are a weird looking animal. They have like a huge mane, like furry, like ridge down their back of like spiked up hair. Their forelimbs are super longer than their hind limbs, and the patterns on them are like very standoutish, right? They got like stripes down them. They're all multicolored. They're a really beautiful looking animal, but none of the eyewitness descriptions match a striped hyena at all. The only thing that matches is that reddish color, which striped hyenas have, but they also have a whole bunch of other colors in there, and none of them describe them as like being stripy, which a striped hyena is, hence the name. So it's one of the most popular theories that it was like an escaped exotic animal like a striped hyena, but it just, again, it doesn't match at all. Another theory is it was a lion. Now that does match a lot of the eyewitness descriptions. They do describe the Beast of Gevaudan as having a long tail with a tuft of fur at the end. And lions have this. One of the hunters, I can't remember which one, but one of the three dipshits that were incompetent and couldn't kill the beast, described it as being a lion hybrid. It was a lion mixed with some other animal, which was interesting because if it was more wolf-like, he would have described it as a wolf hybrid. But no, he described it as a lion hybrid. Now, that does make sense. The way the Beast of Gevaudan hunted, it stalked its prey. It didn't just track its prey like wolves do for a long time until it sort of the animal gets exhausted and then they come in for the kill. This was an ambush predator. It slinked. It ambushed. It was more of a cat-like hunter. And obviously nobody described a large mane on it, which leads people to theorize that it was a sub-adult male lion, which kind of confuses me because I'm like, if it was a subadult male that didn't really have a mane yet, why couldn't it be a female lion? Like, if it can be a subadult male that hasn't really developed a full mane yet, then surely it could be a lioness as well, like a female lion, which would actually make more sense because if it was in a pride, they're actually responsible for more hunts than the males. Um, Now, the hybrid theory, it was a lion mixed with something else, that can only be true if it was hybridized with another big cat within the genus Panthera. So, if it was a lion hybridized with a tiger, it would be a liger, which I could not see it being. Um, Ligers are, again, very distinct. That's if the male was the father and the female was the mother. It would be a liger. It would be a tigon if the mother was the male and the female. Yeah, fuck, whatever. Reversed. It would be a tigon. Which would, again, they look very different. They've got basically a lion head with a tiger body, so that it would be described with tiger stripes, which it wasn't. So that can go out the window. A lion hybridized with a jaguar would still have rosettes, so it still have spots like a jaguar. Same with a leopard. It was never described as having spots or rosettes, so that can be thrown out the window. So even if it was hybridized with another big cat, which it can only hybridize with another big cat within that genus, which are the ones that I just mentioned, the other one being a snow leopard, which just ain't happening. It would not fit the descriptions even if it was hybridized. Now, another theory is it was a large dog, like a mastiff crossed with something, which again, I could not, I can't really believe that a dog would be responsible for that many deaths and killings. People would know it was a dog, and I've never seen a dog with a long tail and a tuft of hair at the end. People thought somebody may have trained a large dog to do this kind of thing, which I just don't believe at all. It's just not something that dogs do. It's just not, doesn't fit within the behavior of a dog. So yeah, I don't know. I honestly do not know. Like this is one of these mysteries that I have no idea. If I was to take a guess at what animal it would be, I would say it was a lion. But then again, did the people of Gevaudan know what lions looked like? A lot of them did describe it as lion-like. But if it was a lion, wouldn't they just say it was a fucking lion loose in Gevaudan? So I don't know. Like, I don't know what people back then knew. They were peasants. But it wasn't actually only peasants that saw it. It was like esteemed hunters that worked for the king that saw this as well. Surely they'll know what a lion looks like. One of them did, described as a lion hybrid. So it was lion-like, this animal. And it was huge, like, the size of a young bull. That's massive, right? And that is, a lion would be the size of a donkey, for sure. And a young bull, yeah, that would fit. But what the hell was the Beast of Gevaudan? Nobody knows. And do you know what I want to do? I've been wanting to do this for ages. I don't know how the hell I'll do it, but surely there's a way. This animal had such a big range. It was killing a lot of people. It was moving around the countryside a lot. If I don't know how this would work. This is me just theorizing. If I could somehow figure out what the soil layer would have been in that time period, because obviously, like as time goes by, the sediment of soil and rock and stuff like that builds up. So that's how you can date things, is the sediment layers of the earth. So if I could find out how deep I would have to dig to get to the sediment layer of like 1764 to 1767. Take soil samples, a whole bunch of them, filter them through water, and then submit them for eDNA analysis. eDNA is environmental DNA. So you can take water from a stream or any body of water, and you pump it through a syringe, like a few liters of it, through a syringe over a filter, and then you analyze the DNA on that filter, and basically any animal that has been anywhere close to that water source, its DNA will show up on the DNA data bank that they have. So, like, although it's the water, DNA from mountains, from everywhere, ends up in the water over time. It runs off the soil, it will end up in that water. But you can also take soil, run it through water, pick up the DNA, and then filter it over the syringe, and then submit it. Basically, any animal that has been discovered has been put into this genetic data bank. So we've got its DNA on file. So we could tell if they would get wolves. We could tell if there was something exotic like a lion showing up in that eDNA, and that would confirm that there was a lion in that area at that time. Like, I don't know if it's doable, but in theory, it sounds like it should be doable. I mean, I don't know how long DNA you can. If it was preserved well, DNA can last for a long time if it was well preserved, which it could be in Gevaudan. It gets pretty damn cold, and if it's but it also gets pretty hot as well, which will degrade DNA. But if it's protected by soil and layers, it might be fine. I mean, you can get DNA from woolly mammoths that have been dead for 10,000 years. Mind you, they've been frozen in permafrost, which, keeps the DNA intact for a long time. But it could be feasible. This is only a couple of 100 years. It could be preserved. Obviously, you'd have to take a lot of samples in a lot of different locations. But I think it might be a shot, hey? Like, I want to try it. I want to go to Gevaudan and try this. I reckon that'd be super cool. Imagine getting to the bottom and figuring out what basically one of the oldest animal mysteries and cryptid mysteries that we kind of know of. Imagine solving it. And I reckon we could. I honestly reckon we could. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to do it before I not die. That's a bit morbid, but before I fucking do some other shit, like get too old or whatever. I'm going to take a trip to France. I'm going to figure out how we can do this. I'm going to get like a geologist or something like that to figure out how deep I'd have to go. And I don't think it would be that deep, to be honest. I reckon it'll only be a couple feet. And just like sort of, people take like drill samples, like shit like that of ice and stuff like that. And you just push a pipe down and get some soil, run it over some water, and then pump it through a filter, and voila, we could have the DNA of the Beast of Gevaudan. So, yeah, that would be really cool. Anyway, let me know what you think the Beast of Gevaudan was. And you know what? You know what I forgot to tell you? How many people it actually killed. Okay? So it was hundreds, okay? Like, reported at the time as being hundreds. Hundreds of people in that 3-year span were killed and more were injured. They did a study in 1987 to estimate how many deaths there actually were, because things get spun out of proportion and stuff like that. They went out, they looked at graves, they looked at death reports, death certificates, things like that. This 1987 study estimated that there had been 210 attacks, resulting in 113 deaths. All right? 98 of the victims that were killed were partially eaten. And this is just one study, okay? So it could have been more, it could have been less, but regardless, 210 attacks over 3 years is insane. Absolutely insane. From one animal? Crazy, all right? And obviously this study has under sort of, it figured out that it was a smaller estimate of what they originally thought it was. They thought it was like, over 300 people killed, 150 people killed. But this is a more modest look at it and a more accurate look. And it still came to the conclusion of 113 deaths. That's insane. Okay, so that is like confirming that something happened there and it was bad. There were a lot of people killed. So it happened. This wasn't folklore. This wasn't a myth. This legitimately happened. The Beast of Gevaudan existed, but what was it? We don't know. And before I leave this earth, I'm going to try and figure it out. eDNA is awesome. And I honestly think I've got a shot at it. So watch this space and watch me have a crack at solving the mystery of the Beast of Gevaudan. How's my French accent? The Beast of Gevaudan. Actually, that just sounds like The Godfather. You killed my Beast of Gevaudan. Oh, fuck's sake. Anyway, on that note, I will leave you. Don't forget, if you go to biothorn.com.au, you can pick up Thorn's Jungle merch. There's Biothorn merch, which is my company that basically everything's under. But the Thorn's Jungle t-shirts are awesome. I really love them. I love that picture, the Thorn's Jungle picture. I based that picture. I made it myself, that logo and everything. It's based on a monkey called a drill, which I've already mentioned this, but yeah, I just love it. It epitomizes the jungle, like a scary looking primate amongst the jungle. So anyway, if you want a shirt or a hoodie, I think there's hoodies on there as well. Check out the website. There's also pouches, Biothorn signature pouches, like the one I wore in Kings of Pain. I only ever wore the one and I've still got it, and holy crap, it has held up so well. And the more it gets beat up, the better it looks. So there's pouches for sale on www.biothorn.com.au. I don't even know why I say the www. Anymore, because you don't need to type that in. Fun fact. You do not need to type that anymore. And you probably haven't since 1998. Yes, people still do, and I'm one of them. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your week. And what I will say is keep your ears open for more episodes, because this is one thing that I get lazy with, which I shouldn't, because it's one thing that I love making and I want to make more of. And hell, if it means me putting out 2 episodes a week, I will. Because realistically, there's not much planning that I need to do. There's not much research. Most of it I already know. And it's just me talking shit and just shooting the wind with you about cool stuff. Alright, so I will see you next time on another episode of Thorn's Jungle. Have a good week, everyone.